perched on the high ground north of downtown Calgary.
I think Canadians are mad.
Until just a few months ago, this was home to one of Canada's most respected and popular cabinet ministers.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Jim Prentice is now a banker.
Been one of the hazards.
And the Liberal candidate in the riding is banking on one of the few real opportunities in Alberta to turn a blue riding red. This is politics Alberta style. At the Calgary stockyards, the ranchers are getting ready for spring. They watch cattle prices here like a pollster on a campaign trail. Across the province of Alberta, politicians are now out of the gate, trying to sell their ideas to a winter-weary population. It's never been an easy job in a place that prides itself on political independence. It's no secret that this is conservative country. It's the birthplace of the Reform Party and the rebirthplace of the Conservatives. The Prime Minister is from just up the road here. It would be a big story if anybody other than a Conservative were elected around here. But that is exactly what these guys want. The Liberal Party knows a breakthrough here in Calgary would be a huge story.
And 128, right?
But it's an uphill battle. The last time a Liberal MP was elected here in Calgary was 1968, when Pierre Trudeau swept to power.
This is the best part of this, you know.
Right now, their best hope in Calgary is Stephen Randall, an academic who's worked for the UN and the OAS.
This riding has tremendous Liberal potential because there are two very popular Liberal MLAs that represent parts of the federal riding. Calgary Varsity, which is represented by Harry Chase, a very successful two-term MLA. And of course, the until recently leader of the Alberta Liberal Party, David Swan, represents the area that we're sitting in right now as the Liberal MLA for this riding provincially as well. So there's a strong Liberal base here, which has not been reflected in federal voting patterns in the last two elections. Our strategy obviously is to focus initially on our areas of strongest support and then move out. We're seeing good support.
Federal Liberals here say they're also encouraged by the fact that the new mayor was a come-from-behind winner with strong Liberal ties. But will that translate into federal votes?
Because otherwise I'm going to be miserable on the afternoon of the 3rd.
Federally, no. Provincially, we've had the odd Liberal. Our mayoralty, Dave Bronconnier, a Liberal. He ran as a federal Liberal candidate. A current mayor, Nahid Nenshi, I'd say pretty Liberal. Calgarians are funny that way. They'll elect a Liberal mayor, but they'll go provincially and a little more conservative, federally more conservative. So that's kind of how this city goes.
It confuses me a bit.
It is confusing. I think it confuses the rest of the country that we have a Muslim mayor who came up the middle in a three-way race and surprised a lot of people. And so far, people are quite happy with him. So yeah, Calgary is more diverse, a little more cultural than the old yogurt example.
Rick likes a world where taxes are fair and regulation doesn't become a headache. But ask around here about the Liberals, and you'll likely get an earful. Why wouldn't you consider the Liberal?
Because this is Alberta, and I remember the NEP.
The National Energy Policy.
National Energy Policy.
What was that like? Tell me what your memories are of that, because that's a long time.
It was a long time ago, and it effectively killed the economy in Alberta through the first half of the 80s. Probably till 87. That Alberta was able to get back on its feet.
It cost jobs?
It cost jobs, it cost people's livelihoods, it cost their personal net worth. You know, houses went from worth something to worth nothing. Jobs disappeared. And in Alberta, we felt that the Liberals had stolen our money to give to Quebec.
Now, the person who did that is since long passed away, but you still hold resentment to the brand, the Liberal brand.
The individual alone didn't do that. It was the party and the party bigwigs, power brokers that caused that to happen.
Well, there are a couple of comments. Every once in a while it comes up, but it's becoming a fading issue now. I think a lot of people do not understand what the National Energy Program and policy was all about. And think of the fact that we are now hearing from the Alberta Minister of Energy, this morning in fact, and yesterday, the need for a national energy strategy. He carefully avoided the word policy, but a national energy strategy. He's absolutely correct. I mean, a country like this, or the United States, needs a national strategy on how we're going to deal with the full range, the full spectrum of energy, whether it's exports or generation.
Yeah. What would that cover? I mean, the National Energy Program, some people saw it as kind of a price-fixing scheme.
Well, there are a combination of things. I mean, a national energy strategy could well involve the environmental side as well as the marketing issues. It could well involve the pricing structure. But it could also involve a greater degree of coordination among the different energy sectors that we have: oil and natural gas, hydroelectricity, nuclear power. There is no significance like healthcare. People are afraid to touch this issue on a national level. You know, you compare what we have here to the Norwegian approach, for example. Norway has the tremendous advantage of being a unitary state. There's no federal-provincial problem there. Mm-hmm. And so they've been able to develop, I think, the kind of thing that Peter Lougheed has been talked about for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's a strategy where you have more ownership of the resources as opposed to treating them as though you're a renter of some kind. That you go more slowly, more carefully, you clean up your mess as you go, and further you invest for the future. And Lougheed's view, I mean, a progressive conservative for whom I have the greatest admiration. We need more people like him in national office, frankly. He's absolutely right, I think, on each of those issues. We do need to go a little more slowly. We do need to look at market diversification. And we do need to act like owners. But it's been hard, given the tensions, as we saw with Danny Williams in Newfoundland and elsewhere, to reconcile the tensions between federal and provincial authorities on policy questions, on who gets the money. I mean, that's an issue. Who owns the resources has been resolved, and it's a constitutional issue now. But we need to have a better level of coordination. How you achieve that, I think, involves good leadership at both the provincial and the federal level.
Do you think people in Alberta should just get over the
1980?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And what is often forgotten, and including by your friend who said he would never ever vote Liberal because of the national energy policy. The fact is there was a global turn down after 1982 in prices. It was not driven just by the Canadian factor. The problem existed in Europe. It existed in the United States. The oil rigs were not just pulling out of Alberta to go to the U.S. because there was a problem in the United States as well in terms of oil price. I mean, we can't control the global marketplace. We can try to adjust to it, but we can't control it. The timing was very bad. And administratively, I don't think anyone would disagree that it was badly handled, really very badly handled by Ottawa, which is not unusual. It's even campaign donations, here, they go to Ottawa and then they filter back. People in the community say, it's just like our taxes, we're lucky to get it back. We're lucky to get it back in some way. Then campaign donations go the same route. So people, I think, need to get over that. This is more than 30 years ago. I think the Liberal Party had learned its lessons from that period. I think we've all learned our lesson from that period. And it does relate to the need for good policy development.
The Liberals would love to rewrite history on the NEP and Alberta, but they can't. Instead, they're pouring resources into a riding that has, for at least the last few elections, hosted pretty low-key campaigns against a star Conservative cabinet minister.
There are high expectations, I think, and there was a great deal of support in the constituency for Jim Prentice because they felt that he was delivering the kinds of support for the constituency that they wanted. And frankly, for the city and the province as a whole, given the fact that he was very high profile. That's not the case now. They have not chosen somebody of comparable profile. And there are many Conservatives who are disappointed that there was not an open competition, a search for someone of comparable stature to Jim Prentice to run in this riding. There's a 31-year-old, relatively inexperienced woman who's very bright and very capable, but not of the Jim Prentice stature. So there's some dissatisfaction there.
Now, to be clear, things look pretty good here for the Conservatives, but there are concerns. The deficit here has not gone unnoticed.
The Prime Minister has disappointed some fiscal Conservatives. We've said that on the air. They've said it to me. And so he's not been as conservative as they would have wanted in some fiscal matters. Socially, I'm not hearing anything about this. We need a stronger small C Conservative kind of social platform. I have not heard it. So on that side, they're happy with him. Fiscally, generally, they're happy with him. The country is doing, I think, as good as it could. We had some good debate about all the stimulus money. That was not, that was not all that well received out here. But they understood the reality of a minority government.
If you could walk up to the Prime Minister and ask him a question, what would it be?
What would he really do if he had a majority? We haven't seen him in power with a majority, and I'd like to know what he's really thinking behind that.
So you before you would grant him your vote, you want to know how he would use it in a majority?
No, he's going to have my vote regardless.
You want to know what his plan is?
If I was just going to talk to him, I'd like to know what that would really look like.
What would you like to see him do with a majority?
I am personally a small C Conservative, fiscal Conservative. I would like to see that. I would like to see him follow closer to those ideas.
What do you think of the deficit? The deficit was, we had no deficit 4 years ago, or even less time than that. But now we have something north of $50 billion deficit per annum.
As a fiscal Conservative, I would say it needs to be eliminated immediately. 8 months, 12 months, 18 months. Whatever it takes to make that happen.
So, and this is why I get a little bit confused, because I think Calgary's got a lot of fiscal Conservatives. I grew up in Alberta, in Edmonton. I hope you don't hold that against me.
No.
I don't quite understand how people... I talked to Dave Rutherford earlier today, and I would think that his phone lines would have just been lit up with people, absolutely lit up, with the fact that there's this deficit in a province where you guys pride yourselves in not running deficits provincially or I say federally. So why aren't people more upset about it? It just seems marginally irritated.
I think there's a recognition of the reality of the worldwide recession. We know that happened, and that impacted everything and everybody, and probably most of us suffered in one way or another.
Back at the stockyards, today's sale is almost done. The ranchers here are looking forward to one of the best years in a long time. Politics right now is hardly on the radar.
Are people even talking about the federal election? Does anybody even know what's going on? I haven't seen a single sign yet.
No, it's interesting. I mean, not a lot. I mean, it's on the news every day, of course, and it'll start to warm up here, I'm sure. But really in this part of the country, I don't think there's a clear desire to have an election right now, frankly.
Now, they may not be mad as a bull here, but ranchers are irritated by an election most people don't think Canada needed. The sooner the campaign is done, the sooner what they call around here a lot of bull can stop.
40 on 1, 40 on 1.